Welcome to the Money Over 50 podcast, brought to you by Dallas Davison and Michael Hogue from Money Over 50 Financial Advisors. This information is general in nature and does not take into account your objectives, financial situation, or needs. Therefore, you should consider whether the information is appropriate for you and your personal circumstances. If you require personal advice, please contact Money Over 50 Financial Advisors. Here are your hosts, Dallas Davison and Michael Hogue.
Welcome to Money Over 50. Today's topic is success over 3 decades of retirement. Michael, what do you got for us?
Thanks, Dallas. So we know, of course, that the average life expectancy of a couple that retire in their mid-60s is something like 30 years. And that's just the average. Yeah. So the people that
are listening to this right
to this right now generally take better care of themselves.
Yeah.
Most of which would be a little bit healthier than the average.
Yeah.
Have a little bit more money than the average.
Yeah.
All of those things. So it's likely to be longer for those people. So let's just say it's 30 years.
We always, whenever we talk about this 30 years, we always want to flatter the listeners. It sounds like we're going, anyone who listens to this, you must be very smart, you must be wise and healthy and good-looking people. So
is that inadvertently patting ourselves on the back?
I think so.
So we look at the last 30 years.
Yeah.
Okay, because it's the only thing we can look at.
Yeah.
The last 30 years is the only thing we can look at. And the classic statement of future performance is not necessarily indicative of past performance.
Yeah.
Whilst true, it's the only thing we have is to look at history and to say, okay, well, if things behaved similarly to what they did in the last 30 years, then where would we actually be? So if we wound back the clock 30 years ago and we looked at, in this case, just not the best companies, just the largest 500 American companies, and we look at where their price started in 1991 and where it is in 2021, 30 years later, the price of those companies is up over 10 times.
Yep.
And that's without reinvesting any dividends, assuming you retired and you lived predominantly off the dividend over that period of time. Your net worth is actually up over 10 times.
Yep.
So I also look at another set of data, and I look at the inflationary figures, and something that I could buy for $1 back in 1991 now cost me around about $2.30. Mm-hmm. So inflation is up 2.3 times over that period of time. So if I had invested in not the best, not the worst, just a broad group of companies 30 years ago and took the dividend, which has grown by a considerable amount over that period of time, I'm worth 10 times more than I started at that period of time. That's an irrelevant fact in comparison to what does that money buy me. And what that money buys me is a lot because the average cost of goods and services is only going up 2.3 times over that period of time. I'm worth 10 times more, and the average cost of goods and services has increased by only 2.3 times over that period of time. I've got a note here to say podcast is over.
But I'm not going to let you go. I'm going to want to talk about the philosophy of this and why people think. No, I think that you're right, as in podcast over, in as much as that's the key point of everything that we talk about with why you should be invested predominantly in companies throughout the course of your retirement is summarised in those 2 points. Is that company prices have gone up by something like 10 times over the last 30 years, and that's a fairly average sort of rate of return throughout history. The dividends that you receive and dividends that you received each year, and that assumes that you spent your dividends every year. If you got there 30 years ago and you retired, and every year you just spent all of your dividends, you spent that and didn't do anything else, you would have 10 times more money now in nominal terms than what you had 30 years ago. your dividends have gone up by, we don't have the numbers right here, but it would be, your dividends would have gone up by close to 10 times.
Yeah,
that's
it's very close.
About the average. Inflation has made has pushed everything up by 2.3 times. So this is the point of why you own companies throughout retirement, is that your income stream, so you're not just your retirement savings balance, but also your income stream has gone up by somewhere around 10 times, and the cost of goods and services has gone up by 2.3 times. So in real terms, every week now, at the age of 95, every week you can buy 4 times more things. That's basically how that works. That's the whole point of the inflation number tying in there, is that it helps me to know that I've got 10 times more money and that I've got 10 times more income. But more importantly, everything has gotten 2.3 times more expensive. Therefore, I can afford to buy 4 times more of all of those things. And so when you said there, podcast over, that's really the point. Everything else is window dressing from that. There is no other way. There's no other way to allow for that 2.3 times cost of everything going up. There's no way to allow for everything getting more expensive over time, other than to predominantly be invested in something where the income stream that you derive from that over time is going to go up by far more than that. That's the only sustainable way to make sure that happens.
And you say, where is the risk in that? And anecdotally, you can look at the last 30 years and you can say, where is the risk in that? Well, I can tell you that the average person who was retired didn't get anywhere near those results over that period of time, because right in the middle of this, right in the middle, starting in 2007, was the start of the global financial crisis, which over a period of 18 months, what this person or these people or this group of people were invested into actually fell from the high water mark, fell by 57% over 18 months. Now, I know that the average person made a mistake during that period of time, and their results are far less than this. Yeah. So the risk is that you make a mistake at the wrong time. I mean, most people can look at sets of data,
all day
and
long.
The sets of data don't lie over time. And if you go back on rolling 30-year periods, the sets of data are remarkably consistent and similar to this. Yeah. And people say, that's easy. Yeah. But when wave number one sees a drop of 26%, people get a little bit nervous and make a mistake, some of them. When wave number two occurs in a little over a week, and it's a further 14% drop down to 40% in total, some other people, make a crucial mistake at that point in time and sell their companies at 60 cents in the dollar at 40% down. And when wave number three occurs, over the next 6 months, where things drop another 17% to the bottom that we never knew at the time of 57%, that's when the majority of people capitulated and actually sold, at 43 cents in the dollar at 57% down. And they've never recovered from that. No. They've never recovered from that. So it's one of those things that it's really, really easy to look at the sets of data and say, that's easy. Yeah. Looking back, I wouldn't panic. I wouldn't do that. Yeah. But it's remarkable to me every time I look at data like this. Yeah. It's remarkable to me that all I had to do. Yes. So number one, it's available to me. So 30 years ago, if I was retiring,
this isn't like some Mute fund that was only open to some people. This is just a broad.
It was available to me 30 years ago, and all the way along, I could buy these great quality companies. Yep. And all I had to do was nothing. Yep. Classic Seinfeld pilot episode. The show was going to be about nothing. Yeah. Nothing, Jerry. Yeah. I think all I had to do was nothing. All I had to do was not fiddle with it. All I had to do was not panic. All I had to do was do nothing. Yeah. And over that period of time, I'm up 10 times, and I can buy four. My purchasing power has increased over fourfold. Yep. Yeah. So I can now for
4 times as much.
In 1991, when I retired, I could buy I I could buy one of those things.
Yep. And now I can buy 4.
Now I can buy 4 of those things.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. Like that's what we refer to as true purchasing power increase, or I don't like the word so much, but that's true wealth increase.
Yeah.
Because wealth increase is actually okay. Yeah, I've outpaced inflation.
Yep.
I've outpaced the cost of goods and services by this much.
I think that's a great point about. It seems, and we've touched on this many times, that the hard thing about investing, often for people is and for everyone, and we're all guilty, like we're the same, is that we often talk about this. The hard thing is that in most other areas of our life, our results are correlated with our activity. So if I want a better result, I have to do more, and I have to. And so it feels like when it comes to investing, I have to pick the right companies, or I have to pick the right fund, or I have to pick the right fund manager, or I have to get into the right asset classes. And then throughout the 30 years, it feels like I have to do something. I have to get out at the right time and get back in at the right time, or I've got to move from this asset class into this one, or I've got to get all this right, or I've got to do this, then do that, then do. It's interesting that I think it's often your success throughout your retirement will be inversely proportional to your activity levels. If all you do is buy those assets and spend your dividends every year and forget about it for 30 years, this is the outcome that you did achieve. And I think further to that, so that's, I guess, one part I think of is we always feel like we've to get to the position where people are. If you listen to this at 55, from 25 to 55, to get to the position that you've got to, most of it has come through your hard work and from activity. So whether that was starting a business, or working your way up the ranks somewhere, or working overtime, or developing your skills and expertise, doing some study, doing all this, the more you did, the better off you got over time, and the more you saved, and the more you were careful about how you spent your money, and if you thought a bit more about how you did this, and you did this in a way where it cut your costs a bit, and the more activity you did, the better you ended up. That's, I think, where the shift into retirement is very hard for a lot of people. It's that for some people, their outcomes and where they've got to now has been through their hard work and through their attention and focus and energy. And you basically ask them to switch that off and go, okay, do nothing. Don't. Have you seen, what's that movie where? I feel like forgetting Sarah Marshall. There's a guy teaching another guy to surf. Oh yeah, and he's basically going, stand up on the surfboard. No, that's too much. You're doing too much. To sit back down. And so I can understand for people approaching retirement, where we're saying, okay, don't do anything. No, okay, put some money into super. No, don't do that. Don't do too much. Okay, stop. Do this. No. Yeah. What we're saying throughout retirement, it really is then a case of don't do anything. Just don't overspend. Don't spend more than is sustainable to draw out of your retirement savings. But don't do anything to your money. Don't be trying to make decisions under pressure. Don't be trying to get in and out of things, and don't be trying to pick where's the next hot area to move into. Don't be trying to do any of those things. Do less, and you will achieve more. Basically. So the only other thought that I had of this is that your comment about past performance is not indicative of future performance. I feel like we're always, and I think it's nature in our game. Yeah. From a compliance point of view, we're always trained to, you've got to clarify that this is what happened over the last 30 years, and that's not necessarily what will happen over the next 30 years. But I'm sick of being apologetic about it, because in no other area of life is so past performance. As you said, it's the only thing we've got to go on. If I'm watching two sporting teams play and one of them has been belted, if I'm watching an NRL game, one team has been belted by 50 points every time they've played this year, and the other team has beaten every side they've come up against, I could sit there and go, oh, well, past performance isn't indicative of performance in this game. Or I could just go, hey, this team's probably going to win. Yeah, it's all that you have. Yeah. It's all that you have. Look, I think it's a silly disclaimer. Yeah. I think the disclaimer's there to say, okay, we're not saying it's going to go in the middle of this next 30 years, we're not going to see the markets drop 57%. Exactly in the middle of that, we're not going to see it go up in the first year by what it went up. In the first year of the last set of data that we saw. So there's of course no guarantees. However,
there's not a guaranteed 10% rate of return, but you would
10%.
think it's going to be very close by all the data that you look at, and the ways that companies operate. If that's been that's been the sort of the tenfold rate of return over that last period of time. So
the other thing,
it's one of those things that it is the only guide that you have.
Yeah.
It is the only guide that you have. I'm digressing here, but if you look at the rates of interest are far more volatile than the rates of return of the great quality companies. So if I go back to around the global financial crisis time, I was getting 6% rate of interest at times on my term deposits. Now I'm getting 0.35%, 0.35%. If you look at the difference in that, rate of return, that's far more volatile than what the average rate of return of the largest 500 companies in Australia has been, the largest 200 companies in Australia, or the largest 500 companies in America. So,
so the other thing that I thought to touch on there as well is that, as you just said, and again, past performance is not an indicator of future results, and so you may well look at that and go, well, the next 30 years won't. Let's say returns aren't as good. Let's say the S&P 500, the biggest 500 companies in America, don't return as much. The number that you've got to think about when you look at what that return will be, the return doesn't have to be 10 times. You don't have to get the past return. No. There are only two other things to compare this to, which is what else could I be invested into, and which is, as you say, cash, term deposits, even other growth assets. The likely outcome is that their return is going to be lower than the high quality companies. The other number that I have to compare that to is that inflation number. So to some degree, and again, if we're just spending our dividends here every year, it doesn't matter if my retirement savings don't go up by 10 times. If they go up by 3 times, I have still outpaced inflation, which is 2.3 times. I've still maintained and increased my purchasing power. I can buy more things every week than what I could buy 30 years ago. And I think that if we look at people's definition of success throughout retirement, that's what it is. It's not. I'm not going to get there in 30 years' time and go, hey, I've done everything I wanted to do in retirement. I've spent everything I wanted to spend. Every year I've gotten, I know you don't like the word, but I've gotten wealthier every year in true terms. I can buy more things and services, and I can help out my family. I can do all these things, and I can afford to do all that, and my retirement savings have just gone up and up. I wouldn't look at that and go, oh, well, my retirement savings are only up 7 times, and I thought they'd be up 10 times. I'd just be looking at that going, okay, I've ticked the box. I've done everything I wanted to do in retirement. I can. My purchasing power has gone up many times. It doesn't matter whether it's 4 times or 3 times or 2 times. It's just the fact that it's gone up by more than inflation.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think it's a great way to think of it, even though that's significantly different, and it's different to the last 30 years. It's still comparatively fantastic. So, in wrapping up, again going back to, everyone can look at these data and these numbers and go, okay, that's easy for me. But the statistics coming out, so Dalbar study, Dalbar Incorporated, which is a research institute in America, this was years after the global financial crisis, came back and said, okay, well, the average rate of return of the S&P 500 has been 10%. And what is the average investor that has been invested in that, the average American investor, what have they returned? And it was under 4%. So what that tells you is that human beings have a tremendous urge to fiddle with things. Especially when the price is going down. So all that human being or human beings had to do was buy and hold and do nothing. They got a 10% rate of return. The average human being that was invested in those markets fiddled with it, and they fiddled with it the wrong times, and they only got a 4% rate of return on average. So there's a huge difference in those numbers. My final statement would be, don't let human being behaviours adversely affect human beings.
Thanks for listening.
Thank you for listening to the Money Over 50 podcast with Money Over 50 Financial Advisors. We look forward to catching up again soon.